Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and roll into our next session. So as we wait for people to come back into the room and take their seats, our next session for the day is Improving College Readiness for Southeast Asian American Students and Families, presented by SEARAC. So I'd like to introduce you to Rita Pin Arens, Director of Education Policy at SEARAC, and Suvan Lee, Policy Associate.
All right, thank you very much for having me. And in case anyone is wondering, because my name doesn't give it away, I am actually Khmer American. All right, I am technology challenged right there. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to improve college readiness for Southeast Asian Americans. And so I wanted to share some of the goals of what I wanted to make sure we got out of this particular session. And that's to really share some of the challenges that Southeast Asian American students and families face in terms of educational attainment, and also highlighting some policies and programs that are making a difference today. And then I want to give you the opportunity to help us strategize on ways that we can advance educational attainment for all students. And as well, I'm going to give you some findings that we had from a recent tour that we did of California. Suvan and I literally just came back from a trip to California, where we went to Sacramento, Fresno, and Long Beach to talk with Southeast Asian American students and families to ask them, what do you want to see in schools? What do you need for college access? My clicker's not working. Oh, there we go. So first I'm going to cover the barriers to educational attainment. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is that within the Southeast Asian American community, very few have gone to college. We have nearly 2/3 of Cambodian Americans, Laotian Americans, and Hmong Americans who have never attended college. So this isn't just who don't have college degrees, but they have never gone to college at all. And then also 50% of Vietnamese Americans have never gone to college. So this is a tremendous challenge because we need those mentors, we need those role models, we need people within the community who knows what that experience is to go to college and what to expect. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with this clicker. The next thing is that we also don't have, we also don't have a lot of, we also have a high dropout rate in terms of those who have high school diplomas. Within the community itself, we have over 1/3 of Laotian, Cambodian, Hmong Americans who do not have high school diplomas. And we see this in the continued dropout rates. About 40% of Hmong, 38% of Laotian, and 35% of Cambodian students do not complete high school every year. So this continued high dropout rate leads to a lack of college going within the community. And when you look at the overall stats for high school graduation rates, you can see that the dropout rates and high school graduation rates for Southeast Asian Americans are actually equivalent to our Black, Hispanic, and English language learners. So some of the barriers that also Southeast Asian Americans face is high rates of poverty. And so you can see that Cambodian Americans, Laotian, Hmong, and Vietnamese Americans have much higher poverty rates than the average American family. We also know that within the Southeast Asian American family, we have a high rate of limited English proficiency. And so with only 8.7% of the American population saying that they speak English less than well, it is almost astonishing when you look at the rates within the Southeast Asian community. We're talking about rates of over 40% on average. When you look at the Vietnamese community, it's 50% do not speak English very well. And this is partly because we have a continued immigration into the country. And when you compare this to the Asian American average, it's still high because the average Asian American rate for limited English proficiency is about 32%. So all of this leads to some big issues with parental engagement within the schools, and that's at the elementary, middle, and high school level, as well as when our students get to college. And it's not from a lack of desire. There are some cultural barriers as well. From a Cambodian perspective, when Cambodians put their children into school, they expect the school to take care of them. And so there's this gap in terms of understanding that we have to be advocates for our children. And this is a very basic concept that, not all of our community members understand, yet most Americans do understand that. So there's also lack of knowledge of how to navigate the public education system, how to apply for college, how to apply for financial aid. I just spoke to a parent this weekend that said she didn't even know that schools offered after-school programs. She wondered why some kids stayed after she picked up her own child. And so just understanding these basic things that our schools offer, I think, is a gap that we need to close. It's an information gap. Also, our parents need more language access within the schools to make sure that they are able to engage with the schools and therefore support students. And also, in terms of the engagement opportunities that schools offer, they typically are not catered to our communities. They're not held at times that we can attend. They're during the workday, or they're immediately after school lets out. They're not on the weekends, and they don't have the language supports that we would need to really fully engage our parents. So I'm going to turn it over to Savan to talk about some of the promising policies and practices that we've seen.
Thank you, Rita. So now that we see we have this this achievement gap with a lot of Southeast Asian students, then the next question logically is, what are we doing about it? SEARAC's been working on some policies and with some community-based organizations and students on some promising practices. On the policy end, we're working on something what's called data disaggregation. So it's a very wonky term, but essentially what it is we want schools to collect more nuanced and specific information about students, racial and ethnic identities, and then compare how well they're doing academically, whether they're graduating, whether they're proficient in state tests. This is important because it really helps us identify which students are performing academically well and which students need some more support and targeted services. I'm going to come back to this slide here, but so this slide, this was this is a table from the state of Minnesota. It was done by a Council of Asian Pacific Minnesotans, a state agency, and they looked at the state reading tests for Asian American students. So that blue line represents the aggregate proficiency rates for Asian American students. And then broken down, you'll see those are all the Asian American ethnicities. So at the top, you'll see South Asian students. And they're doing they're about 86% proficient in the state reading test. So further down, you'll see a lot of the Hmong students and Lao students and Southeast Asian students who are doing less proficient than the average number here. So this is just one example from a state that has a strong concentration of Southeast Asian students who are refugees from the Vietnam War, and a lot of these students are low income. Coming back here, so this here is our executive director when we were running a campaign for our data disaggregation policy to be included in the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. So below, we've also been doing some advocacy at the state level, and Washington State and Minnesota State recently adopted some data disaggregation policies. And California is currently in the process of this, and so it's very promising, and we're hoping that more and more states adopt this, and I think a lot of educators and policymakers recognize this need for our students. So now that we kind of have adopted some data disaggregation policies in these states, what are we going to do with it? And here we have some colleagues in the San Diego Unified School District and at the Kamehameha schools. For them, these are some ways that they are using data disaggregation to inform how best to direct their resources and how best to support their students that need the most support. Got all the pictures? Okay. And then, so from the policy, now that's all on the policy end. On the practice end, we've been working with two groups in Seattle and in Long Beach, the Vietnamese Friendship Association and the Khmer Girls in Action. So they run culturally relevant after-school programs. All of these students are Southeast Asians or recent arrivals to the US, and 2/3 of them were at high risk of dropping out of school. About half the students had parents who had never had any college experience. And so we surveyed about 100 of those students. We did some focus groups with them, and we interviewed a few students. And I think what we found was very promising in that all the students who were participating in these culturally relevant after-school programs stayed in high school. They didn't drop out. And about 75% of them were a lot more confident about graduating high school and more interested in attending college. And I think it's important for a lot of our students and community members to really see themselves reflected in schools, and if not schools, then in after-school programs where some of those curriculum that's being run by community-based organizations that are working with some of these schools, the students see their cultures and their knowledge and their traditions reflected in that. And so some of the other findings from the interviews included students sharing that they felt like it was a safe space in these after-school programs for them to learn about themselves and why a lot of these things are relevant, right? So in schools, we learn about the Vietnam War, but we don't always understand we don't always see where Southeast Asians fall in the context of the Vietnam War. A lot of the other students shared about how they can also learn from their peers in these after-school programs, and and that it was a space for them to ask questions that sometimes we don't necessarily recognize that not everybody knows some of these things. So just questions about college, like what's the first step to it? How do I fill out my FAFSA? Where do I go? Like, do I have to pay somebody to fill out this FAFSA? Now, and Rita?
So as I said, we went on this quick tour of Sacramento, Fresno, and Long Beach to really ask parents and students, what supports can we help you get to improve your college readiness? And here are some of the answers that they gave us in terms of student supports. So first was rethinking the types of resources that are needed for college, right? And this includes resources to pay for college financially, but also resources to fit into college, to fit into the social life of college. We've had students telling us that, they couldn't always afford to go to extracurricular activities or to go to dances or to buy extra books that were outside of what their course required. And so being able to fit in was an important thing to help them with their confidence, to help them feel whole and well at the college. And so and those resources don't always have to be financial. And that also applies to high school as well, providing the resources so that students can prepare in terms of extracurricular activities that might look great on your college application. Students need transportation to participate in those activities. They also wanted some help in getting internships and job experiences before college because they found that valuable in terms of giving them confidence, giving them that independence, and also something they thought would be good to have on their college applications. The other thing, main category of supports that students wanted were to have more mentors, coaches, and support groups. And so they wanted emotional support to really go through some of the things like graduating, just having your peers there so that when you struggled, you had somebody to talk with because they didn't always feel comfortable talking with their parents. They wanted to have people who'd been through the struggle already, to offer them guidance. And that was just the emotional support. They also wanted some more help building academic skills that they felt they didn't get necessarily in middle or high school. And that includes learning how to really study, right? Learning how to manage your time when all of a sudden you have all this free time as a college student. A lot of students said that they felt they wasted their time because they didn't know what to do and how to manage it well. They also wanted information on how to form study groups, how to reach out to other students that weren't like them, and also how to talk to professors. A lot of them expressed fear about approaching their professors, especially because the professors don't always look like them as well. So, those are the sort of support groups that I think we should think about. How do we help our students with those skills and forming those groups? And that can either be done at the high school or at the higher education institution. The other K-12 school supports that students asked for was having, of course, more disaggregated data on our communities, as Suvan shared with you, and also having data on which languages are supported at a school, especially if you're an English language learner. You want to know if your school has support for for Cambodian or support for Hmong students. Do they have interpreters there who can talk to your parents so that they can understand what is happening with you academically? And then the other thing that they really asked for was to have educators be trained and culturally competent to know what Cambodian, Laotian, Hmong, and Vietnamese is. I'm going to share a quick story with you that was shared with us this weekend, where it was about 5 parents and students went to a state board of education meeting in California, and when they arrived, there wasn't language support for them. They were issued an apology, and somebody said, well, who are you? What group are you? And the parent said, I'm Cambodian. And the policymaker said, I don't know what Cambodian is. And we were just astonished. And the parents sat through the meeting. They didn't quite know exactly they didn't know fully what was going on, but they said they felt so humiliated and frustrated and invisible that the policymakers at the table didn't even know who they were. So I want to go on to how do we support parents then? Because we know that parental and family engagement is so important for making sure that students succeed in schools. The first is increasing language access for families, and that's informing families of their current legal rights. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands in this room. How many of you think it is a legal right to have a written translation from the schools if you ask for one? Don't be shy. Okay. How many of you think it is a legal right to have an oral translation if you ask for it from the schools? I should see every single hand raised right now, because that is your legal right. The school doesn't have to give you a written translation because, they have to do it to the extent practicable. And most schools will push back and say, I'm sorry, we don't have a translator in your language. But they do have to give you an oral translation if you ask for it. And not all parents know this. And not all parents know that they can push back when the school says no. They can push back when the school says, you need to bring in your own interpreter or bring in your son or daughter. That is not right. That is a violation of their civil rights. Okay, so it is a legal right for parents to have oral translation when they ask for it. And so just teaching parents of their legal rights is very important, but also removing the stigma of asking for it. We had parents in our listening session who were part of our language access focus group, and I had a translator available and on hand, but I could see that not all of the parents, even with me, somebody who can understand Khmer, they were not willing to speak in Khmer. They were not willing to ask to use a translator, and they preferred to speak in English and to answer the questions inaccurately. And I think it is because there's this deep shame we have within our community of not appearing knowledgeable enough. And we have to help ourselves overcome that. We have to help our parents understand that it's okay, that not speaking English is not a deficiency. It's okay. So that's the first thing. The second is also making sure that any translations that we have use friendly vocabulary, that it's not in the jargon and technical terms that we usually use for English. So making sure that when we translate, we're very careful about that. And the second thing parents really asked us for was helping them understand the public school system better. I mentioned before that we need to help them understand that they need to be advocates. They need to speak up and push back when the schools tell them that they can't do certain things. We need to have parents ask about graduation requirements so that they understand what their students need to graduate, to ask about after-school programs and extracurricular programs. And I'm going to challenge everybody here. When you go home, find out, does your school have a parent handbook? Because that's really what our parents need to be asking, is a parent handbook on what services the school has, what policies they have in place for discipline, for attendance, for graduation. That needs to be given to every single parent, whether you're Southeast Asian American or not. Every parent should have that. Also, we need to have workshops to help our parents really understand, what are you supposed to ask in parent-teacher conferences? What do you do in school discipline procedures so that you don't just sign a piece of paper because somebody's giving it to you? What do you need to look for at the IEP meeting if your child has special needs? What are the different processes in place? We really shouldn't have parents kind of navigating this by themselves and trying to understand it. So I think it's a big responsibility for us to take on, but those of us who are working in this space, in advocacy, in trying to advance educational opportunity, need to give those sort of workshops to our families. And then the last thing, they wanted was just more information about the financial aid process and college applications. What information is really needed? What is that information needed for? And part of that is to help reduce the amount of fear in filling out that application form. Parents need to understand that, you need to give your social security number, you need to give your financial information, that it's not going to somehow get to the IRS and you're going to be penalized. And also we need to start bringing our parents to college campuses for visits. We need to ask for API liaisons at the colleges to reach out and speak to our parents, to tell them that it's okay for us to go far away. I'll tell you a quick personal story. My parents didn't want me to go to Yale University at first because I lived in Idaho and they thought that was too far. They didn't know any other Cambodians in Connecticut. And it took a Yale alumni calling every day to let them understand this is a great opportunity for your daughter. This is a place you need to let her go to. And so I challenge you, make sure that your parents understand that, Southeast Asian American students, it's a cultural thing, I get it. But, it's okay to let your child go off. It's fine. There may be great opportunities for them if they do. So, I'm going to now transition because, I'm all about gathering information, and I know that more brains working on an issue is better than having just a few. So I'm going to ask you, what can you do to improve educational opportunities for Southeast Asian Americans? And so we're going to have you, I think, at your tables, and if you're at a table with just a few people, you might want to scoot on over to a table with more people. I want you to take a look at these 3 questions. What successful programs or initiatives targeting Southeast Asian American students or first-generation college students have you seen at your local K-12 schools that others can learn from? Because college readiness really begins at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And what can schools do better to support Southeast Asian American parents? And then for those who are in the higher ed space, what can you do to help improve college readiness before the students come in to your campus? Okay, so we're going to take about, I think, 15 minutes to talk. And I would like to have each table choose a volunteer to report out just a few of the things that you think we can do. And Suvan and I will collect all of anything that you take notes on so that we can incorporate it into our work as well. Okay, so if each table could could finish your conversation and select one person to come up to, I think we have 2 microphones in the center of the room. If you can come up and share just 1 or 2 of the strategies that you think we can utilize to improve educational opportunities for Southeast Asian Americans and first-generation college students. Okay, so if you can come up. All right. Okay, looks like we have our first volunteer. Please say your name, where you're from, and then share your strategy with us.
Okay, hello, I spoke earlier. I'm Ivan Tiet from California State University, Sacramento. It's really weird because I'm not facing you, but I'm facing the mic. But anyways, so I do come from an education background and I do want to be a teacher. So one of my education professors told me that a lot of the ESL programs exist and stuff, but they are not actually like being done well in practice. And she said one suggestion for the teachers are to basically group all the students. So basically, the English proficiency, it should not be based on grade level, but should be based on English proficiency. So teachers should collaborate and maybe from like, let's say 2 to 3 p.m., hold a block session and gather all students, no matter what grade they're from. I'll group all the students from who have basic proficiency into one classroom, intermediate proficiency to another classroom, advanced fluency into a third classroom. And then they can actually work with all the students from with that specific skill set, I suppose. Because otherwise, you would have one teacher who might have a wide range of English proficiency, and that's really hard to teach. The second method we thought of is having, for example, if I was a principal and I need a translation person and I didn't have one on staff, one possibility is to outreach to the university or other community organizations and ask if they have a Hmong person or a Cambodian speaker on the staff or a student who might be more willing to help their own community, for example, and they might have the language skills and they can do it on a volunteer basis or maybe a part-time basis or whatever. But I think those are two strategies that could help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next volunteer.
Okay, so I'll speak and then you can speak. Okay, so what I think, the issue is that, so it's not, so like for me, you know, being, my parents were immigrants and, you know, they only got a high school education, and what was really hard was that I had younger siblings, and my job was to go back home right after school and take care of my younger siblings because my parents worked long hours. And I think the problem is, how do you help, you know, parents and families become financially stable so that kids can't go after school and they don't have to worry about taking care of younger siblings? And, you know, how do you help parents become, so they can help their kids economically and financially? I think that's something that still needs to be worked on. And I also think that a solution for what higher education can do is, you know, we take ACTs and SATs before we go to college, and those put kids in a box that, you know, some people are really artistic and they're not good at math and English, and, you know, their SAT or ACT scores might be really low, and, you know, colleges might think they're not ready, but I just think that, you know, students should not be put in a box like that, because not every student functions the same or they learn the same, and I think that's something that, you know, higher education can work on. Instead of using ACTs and SATs to judge a student, they should do more like of a personality or, you know, culture or skills that students can bring and improve the college campus. And then Rio can speak. Yeah.
Well, I spoke a while ago. My name is Rio Pilar. Well, in addition to what she said, I'm actually a volunteer tutor for a KIP. It's kind of like for early college for a younger undocumented students who's actually who needs help because most of their parents are like in gang or something like that. So what I see is that starting early, telling them, oh, this is what's there. You can be a doctor. You can do this. You can build. Oh, I'm better than math. I'm better than English. I think we should like expose them at such a young age to do that. So you can do robotics, build creation to them, because I feel like passion at such a young age and knowing what's there out there, it's going to drive them to do better and then actually move forward through that goals they want to do. So that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shu Huveng. One suggestion I had was precious knowledge. Have y'all seen precious knowledge before? Anybody? Yeah, but Precious Knowledge, beautiful, beautiful documentary. But then I feel like that's a curriculum that needs to be followed throughout the United States for people of color, marginalized identities to follow to be able to empower themselves. But then for those that don't know about Precious Knowledge, basically it's a Mexican American Studies program that was banned in the Tuscan district in Arizona. Basically, the program empowered Mexican American, Latinos, Latinas to learn about themselves, their history, their culture, their language, and through that empowerment, they were able to break through barriers and was able to increase their graduation rates from. They were at like 40-30%, but their graduation rates went all the way up to 90, 95. So you see, by learning about yourself, by empowering yourself, you're able to really reach for the skies and be successful. And I believe that when you learn about something you care about, and you learn about something that means something to you, like for saying, if you learn, instead of learning a blurb about the Vietnam War, you actually learn what happened to the Hmong in the Vietnam War. You know, you would be empowered to learn about it more, and you would be empowered to basically try to dismantle structural racism instead of learning about white history. But then that's all I got. But Leo in our group had another suggestion that was really empowering as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Liu Lafaile, and I am I'm in an internship with the Congresswoman Oumuamata Radewagen, and I am under the ILF program. I see some of our speakers here this afternoon, Ms. Sarah, and my suggestion for our group with the first question is that back in our island territory, we have a program that's called Taumo Lua. It's a dual language program, and it basically applies to the secondary division of the education system. It translates the content from English to Samoan, Samoan to English. That's the strategy that they're doing now. And they have started piloting the program from first grade, and every year it changes onto second, third, fourth, and so forth. So my suggestion for the first question is that we do this program within the states, in the colleges, to translate the content in order for the Asian Americans to, well, basically for the Asian Americans, I don't know where the Pacific Islanders are at, but for the Asian Americans to better understand the content, you must translate it in order for them to understand it in a more particular way. So this program, it is put in place and it is implemented due to the scores placement test that we receive from our local college of students not passing in mathematics, English, science. So they decided to put this program in progress in order to see some change in the content level and from the academic side of the students. So it is up to you, but that's my suggestion from our group. And I think Vi had another suggestion, so I will call upon Vi. Vi, please come up. You have a perfect suggestion for the...
I like how collaborative you all are.
Hi everyone, my name is Waimalu Vai'au and I'm from Pago Pago, American Samoa. It's a U.S. territory. Anyway, so we don't have any Southeast Asians in American Samoa, just Filipinos, Koreans, and Samoans, surprisingly. But the programs that we've implemented, you know, what works in one place may work in another. So we had this Gear Up program where we put high school and middle school kids taking college courses, being tutored by college students. And that was a really good program, and it helped a lot of students get ready for college. And how can schools better support SEA parents? Well, Rita said it, you know, having an oral translator is really important. And also providing a lot of transparency between the board, the schools, and the parents. Transparency and accountability is very important. Also, one of our colleagues at our table over there mentioned that representation is also important as well, because there's no point in you trying to have a voice if you don't have somebody representing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, Rita. Thank you again for facilitating this workshop. My name is Angela Sarte, and I go to California State University, Sacramento. You've mentioned that you went to Sacramento, so I was wondering if you actually visited the Full Circle project, if you went to Sac State and met the Full Circle project program.
We did invite members from Full Circle, and we met with the district superintendent and one of your state board members, as well as parents and students.
Wow, that's so great. What a small world. Okay, I'm sorry. So just to elaborate, because I actually work for the Full Circle project, so it's really great to see someone that actually met the program as well. And it's something that means so much to me, and I'm sure for a lot of others. So just to answer the question, what successful programs, the first one, the answer that our group came up with was actually promoting ethnic studies courses to our youth, so to K-12. And luckily in Sacramento, we actually just got that passed. So it's something that we're hoping that it could go outside of California, because just like the saying, no N-O history, N-O self, no self, then no history, and K-N-O-W, no history, K-N-O-W, no self. It's really something that's impactful for our youth, to be able to learn more about themselves other than just college education. It could change lives. Yeah, so that's just what we have for our group for the first one. And for the second answer, we said, how can schools better support Southeast Asian parents? Just like the other groups, I know they mentioned something about parent transparency. So that's something that our group said as well. But there's something that I actually do have a concern about with that as well. It's just I feel like it's a bit challenging for our generation personally, for that parent liaison, just because we have different waves of immigration. So for instance, I identify as a Filipina American, and we have 4 different waves of immigration. So we have our own cultural clashes and kind of against one another, just because of the different waves of immigration versus the Asian American versus those that just immigrated. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just one concern that I have with the parent liaison, for them to understand for those that were here longer in the United States and for those that recently immigrated. So I feel like that's something that is a challenge for our generation, to try to bridge that. Does that make sense, actually, what I'm trying to say? Because it's just all in my head. So that's something that I feel is a bit challenging, because I personally met families. I have one of my closest friends, actually, he told me that his parents didn't even acknowledge education at all, because what they're used to working as refugees here in America is just working in the fields. That was their life, so they don't really know the value of education. And for us to be able, for our generation to be able to challenge that and talk to the parents and inform them how important it is for their kids to go to school rather than have that family obligation, because that's something that's very crucial. That's a issue for us youth, especially for me as a daughter of a Filipino immigrant. So that's just something that I wanted to say about that. And for what can those in higher education do to help improve college readiness for Southeast Asians, our group also discussed here in Sacramento, we have, or there in Sacramento, we have nonprofit organizations that cater toward Asian Americans. So for instance, we have the Ilmien Community Services, and we were able to collaborate, our university and our program, the Full Circle Project, which works to increase the graduation and retention rates among the Asian American Pacific Islander community, worked with the nonprofit Ilmian Community Services to find ways to educate the youth about the importance of college. So I think that's something that's very important for the college institutions to talk more to those nonprofits and ask, well, what else is needed for your own community? That's very crucial. And I wanted to actually call out my colleague and friend, Colin, to elaborate on an additional answer. You want to? Yeah? Yay!
Hello, everyone. My name is Khalid Shah. I'm from Sacramento State. I see that Angela gave a long speech on there, everything. But I just have to add that we do need small programs. But to be on specific and on point, that we need something that needs to be in our educational system that is totally broken right now. We need to fix that, and something like that, a mentor program. But we need to upgrade that. Like we need a okay, I don't know how to put it in words. So higher educational campuses should require their students to be like at least take one class that is a mentoring class for the high school and middle school students. So that way the bridge is there from the beginning, and they know where they're going. And that way, if the parents need to talk to someone, they can talk to the person, and just in case.
That's a great idea. Thank you. All right, this side of the room's been somewhat quiet. I'm gonna pick out volunteers if you don't come up to the table. Especially if I know your name already.
Dara. I'm with the Laotian American National Alliance. One of the things we actually did not discuss, and this is what this summit is about, is utilizing technology. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I do a lot is I hashtag uplift each other, and I share a lot. So what I've done, what I've noticed just by being on social network, I only use Facebook, the rest is just too much, but is that when we share each other's achievements or in between achievements, it has created like another layer of community via the Ethernet. So I encourage everyone to do that. So we can support each other. It might not be like a specific program, but we're using technology to connect each other. And then when we can come together like this, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, we've been friends on Facebook for 15 years. So it's really a great moment. So I encourage the use of technology to uplift each other.
Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Pauline Dong. I was born and raised in Orange County, California. Represent. All right, so our group, we actually didn't write anything on our poster paper because we were having a very robust discussion. But in terms of successful programs, I'll speak for myself personally. I've been involved in mostly student-initiated programs on my campus, UC Irvine. And there have been a number of organizations that promote student-initiated after-school mentorship programs. The programs that I was involved in was Southeast Asian Leaders Program, which was produced from the Southeast Asian Student Association. And basically, we try to include cultural competency, historical consciousness, and academic support into our program. And with all these good intentions, the main struggle for many of these student-initiated programs is sustainability. Because students, I mean, like us students, we got to balance, you know, academics and everything else. I mean, if you have a social life, you know your grades are going to dip. But anyways, we also have the Southeast Asian Archives, which is one of a kind in the world. And if you don't know about it, just Google it. It's pretty easy to find. But they do have a number of like programs every year that outreach to high school students to basically help them gain awareness about Southeast Asian history and to empower them to understand the history and why higher education is so important. And that archive space serves as the bridge between community and university. But in addition to that, our group discussed how we can better support parents and, like you mentioned earlier, just have parent programs and try to raise awareness about how higher education works, and not only that, but also how K-12 education works. In addition, our group mentioned how we really appreciate how TFA is striving for more recruitment of API students, and that's one of the ways in which we can increase representation in education. So, but in truth, we also said that academic disciplines, and community groups should form an alliance in order to promote student achievement in higher education and student access in higher education. But there's an issue to that too. I think that ethnic studies is always the first to be cut in all the universities across the nation. And in order to sustain this these alliances and these support systems, we must ensure that ethnic studies becomes like a standard GE for all university systems. And not only that, I also believe that it should become a standard GE for K-12 education as well, because I don't want to see a multicultural education. I want to see a polycultural education system that promotes unity, diversity, and also cultural empowerment. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. All right, that table in the corner, back corner, did you go? I don't remember. Don't be shy.
Hi, I'm Madeline Dever. I am a high school senior, and I'm here with my mom with the Lao American National Alliance. One thing I've noticed going through K through 12 in the same old town is that there's a lack of cultural diversity where I live. I mean, I live in Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey. There's not many Asians. There's not many, African Americans. So I haven't been exposed as much as others have in their high schools and things. So what I've learned about myself is through coaching. Having that constant coaching. My mom is actually a life coach, and she's coached me ever since I was 6 years old to learn to understand where I come from, who I am, and how to better my future by accepting that, by knowing where, Laos is, and by visiting it when I was 8 years old. I went to Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia with my mom on a mission trip to see elementary schools, see the kids, kids that are my age, while I was there, hold a video camera for the first time. To see how, we went with the Give Children Choice organization, and we brought doctors, we brought, school supplies to them, to see that there's others that aren't as fortunate as me to know what's going on with this education, and for me to know that I don't know how far they're going to make it, how much they're going to learn, how much they're going to know. So what I want to do as I, increase my education is to go back and see where they are and help them know that there's so much more out there for them to learn, for them to know, so they can be successful in their lives. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to share.
Thank you. All right, did we get a chance for everybody to share? All right, come on. All right, we have one, and then there, and then there.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Mai Ku Tao, and I go to Chico State, California State University, Chico. And I am an incoming junior in the fall, and so I work at the Cross-Cultural Leadership Center. It's a department on campus that focuses on student organizations as well as leadership cross-culturally. So one of the programs that we have is called Pipeline Through College, and what it is it's a mentorship program where our college students go back to our high schools, our local high schools, and we kind of mentor them. But I think something that is very important when it comes to these types of programs is to provide emotional support. And so that is definitely one of the big priorities when it comes to programming or anything that has to do with K through 12, because there's lots of programs. I was in Upward Bound, and so that helped me out a lot with my academics, but at the same time I felt like there was something missing there. There was an emotional support piece that was missing. And so to be able to go into college and be able to go back to my community and be able to mentor them, not only academically, but also emotionally and building their leadership skills. So what Pipeline Through College does is it focuses on students. We choose students who are not in Upward Bound or ETS or anything like that. And so we're supporting those at-risk students who don't necessarily have a vision or can see themselves going into higher education. And so as college students, we're able to go back to our communities and be able to provide that emotional support. And I believe that when it comes to creating programs, that's what we need to focus on, because we can focus on academics as well, and we're going to school for that, but where is the emotional support in that? And so just bottom line, I think a program should really focus on providing that emotional support as well as leadership development. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that program.
Sabadi, Tutukun. My name's Si Ekalati Suwati, or Ek. I'm from Washington State Highline College. I'm the project director for the APIASF program there. We're on our first year. But before I actually talk about our list, I just want to do a shout out to SEARAC, Rita, and Suvan. If you ever get a chance, they have this really cool leadership action training program that happens every year. So spread the word, let folks know if you're Southeast Asian Americans, apply. It's incredible. I went through it last year, and it's an emotional roller coaster, but really engaging in your identity and really how to really support us in advocating for our communities. So props. I also want to just kind of do a shout out to LEAP as well, Leadership Education for Asian Pacific Islanders. Again, if you've got the opportunity, apply for these. Especially, seeing, I just want to congratulate the scholars, incredible. And, you are our future. And I feel like I'm still young, but, find the mentors, find the advocates. Again, I'm ex-Sisavati, and our group talked a lot. We talked about data disaggregation and bringing collaborative, collaborating with the high schools to really expose the students to come in, welcome them to the college atmosphere, welcoming their community, the parents as well. I wanted to kind of touch bases on the emotional piece. I think mental health is a key piece in our identity. I think as Southeast Asians, being a Lao American, I know coming from, because of being a refugee and seeing really the struggles that my parents came through in a patriarchal society where, the men are expected to support their families, support their wives, their communities. When that role changes, it affects. I mean, you've got, you got substance abuse, you've got, spousal abuse. A lot of things happen, and growing up, you see that. The analogy I think of is, a leaking roof, right? You don't know if, without tearing it out, you don't know where the leak's coming from. But growing up, you do feel it. You feel the moisture surrounding you and the effects that it has on you. And at that age, you don't have the language to really identify and really bring it out to light. But going through the emotions, it's affected all of us. And I think, especially as a refugee, immigrants, we share in that commonality. Going into, a dual language, being dual language, going to school, and feeling that, that switch. You always have to switch back and forth, back and forth. And I think often we throughout this whole, conference, we've touched on that. And I think that's something that it's so important for our communities to understand what it means to meet the student at where they're at. There's so many things that are happening, and I'm speaking, I was at the conference yesterday, which was incredible. It was just an opportunity to get together and share in best practices and seeing where we're at. I'm from Washington State, and with the APIASF program. Last year, one thing that stuck out was we have the Grant A for the APIASF, and last year there was 27 applications. This Grant F that is happening right now, there was 64. Is it 64 or 46? 46. That's double the amount, and just kind of seeing the realities of there's not going to, money not increasing, and knowing how competitive the nature of these grants are, but at the same time, that spirit of seeing how many emerging APIASF institutions are coming up, and where do we all see ourselves? How do we connect? How do we collaborate? Because the outcome we're all working towards is bringing up AAPIs. To get to this point, I want more Lao Americans to be standing here, to be represented in everything we do. And I think that's where the heart of the challenge that we face. And so I'm really appreciative of APIASF to bring us all together in each and every year. This is my first year, and this has been incredible. But in addition, as far as data disaggregation, and my mind kind of mind maps, it hops, so bear with me. But Washington State's been doing an incredible job at data disaggregation and gathering. But with the House Bill 1451 closing the educational opportunity gap, there's now an intent, a deliberate motion for sharing this data. And I think as higher education, where we see fit is really how do we engage from that level on to transitioning, being prepared, knowing who are coming into our institutions, what student populations are being served. It's going to give us that's the advantage that we will have moving forward, and it's really preparing that. And then, of course, working in transition to the opportunities for our students at Highline to really move towards that bachelor's or the completion of their professional degree. So these are things that I think is important. I just want to put a plug in for ESL as well. I think, Highline's got, we're the most diverse institution in the state of Washington. We're at about 70% student of color. AAPIs are the largest racial ethnic groups after Anglo-Americans, right? We're at 22%. Latinos are at 21, and African Americans are at 16 there. So we are the majority, and that's something that I'm proud to be a part of. That said, we have the largest ESL, ABE, GED program in the state. 1/3 of our student population is in ESL, and being in that light, you can kind of see parents coming through after school or in the evenings after their work, and they're taking ESL classes. I would love, higher education, CBOs to really acknowledge what does that mean? What does that mean when the effort is there, and how are we capitalizing in a sense of providing support? Because it's a family moment where I can see, for myself, I can see the work towards maybe inviting the families while the parents are taking a couple hours to learn English, levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's bring the families together. Let's have tutors, being ready to, assist in their homework, open up the gym. It depends on the age group. You can provide workshops for financial aid, for those that are in, sophomore, junior, seniors. There's a lot of opportunities, and I think the closing the gap within, community college, universities, to engage, with community-based organizations, and in connecting directly with the families, I think is I can see that moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And before everyone leaves, because I know I'm the last talking person before lunch, make sure you fill out your evaluation to let us know what you thought of this session. And please share your poster with Suvan and me. We're going to take that back, and we're going to incorporate some of your suggestions into policy asks that we can present to the Department of Education. Thank you.